Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host, Marguerite Crespillo, started this podcast simply dedicated to call people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crespillo.
Hello, everybody. It's Marguerite Crespillo, and it's time for Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people. And today we have a very special guest that I actually interviewed her back in 2017, so 6 years ago. And I'm excited to talk to her today to kind of get some updates on what's happening in her business and what she's doing. But I'm excited even more to talk about this because I think one of the biggest challenges that a lot of our listeners and agents have out there is learning how to leverage. So today we have Brindley Tucker. Let me grab her bio real quick. And Brindley unifies teams and helps agents increase leverage for their business. She is, of course, a licensed realtor, the owner of Your Realty Leverage, Inc., a recruiting, training, coaching, consulting, and admin services firm. Throughout her career, she has served in an operations capacity within several industries from Wall Street to real estate. Brindley previously owned a successful real estate marketing and transaction management company where she closed over 2,000 real estate transactions. This expertise is coupled with her experience as a former real estate operations coach for MAPS Coaching, now allows her to share her knowledge by assisting agents, brokers, and industry leaders to attract and retain top talent for their teams and offices. She helps bridge the gap between operations and sales through recruiting, training, coaching, and consulting the top real estate teams in the country. Welcome, my friend Brindley.
I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe it's been almost 6 years since we...
Is it crazy? It was funny because I was listening in on we did an episode with you back in 2017, which we'll reference in our show notes. And one of my goals was to meet you live and in person.
Yes.
And we got to do that last year at an event. So it was great to meet you. And now we just need to have you come visit and hang out, or I guess I probably need to go.
Your farm sounds amazing. So I will take that invite any day of the week. Any day of the week.
Come hang out. We got baby chicks right now and all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Welcome to the show again, a reappearance. And we were talking a little bit before we came online today and talking about what has changed in 6 years. And obviously the whole real estate world has changed, how we do things and everything. Tell me a little bit about what's been going on.
Yeah. So man, 2017, I was still working for MAPS Coaching. I was building the operations coaching division for them. And they went through some leadership changes in 2019. This amazing thing called COVID happened. Oh. And I think we all reevaluated, our lives and what we wanted to do and the way forward and where we wanted to go. And I made a decision that there were a lot of people in our industry that were making a lot of money off agents and pretending like they weren't making money off agents. And I decided I want there to be a world where agents can have leverage and they don't feel like they're held hostage in their business to get it. Teams are an amazing thing. Platforms are an amazing thing. And they're great for a lot of businesses. And they're owned and led by some of my best friends. I coach the top teams in the country on automation, scalability, and I wanted there to be another option. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years, is building a leverage suite where agents can come get any type of leverage they need, pay as they go, and walk away. And so we're doing some really neat things for agents, for brokerages, and giving them time back through leverage, allowing them to focus on income generating activities other than income servicing. And then I'm doing a lot of stuff on the personal development side. It hasn't come public yet, but I'm working in the background on a lot of things in the thought leader space, just based on my journey of 11 years. Actually, tomorrow, I will celebrate 11 years in recovery. And so thank you. I always say this is the Brindley that I built, not the Brindley that was born. And so helping others that royally screw their lives up have the hope that you can come back from seemingly hopeless places and have a life beyond your wildest dreams and own a business and have good emotional intelligence and have strong mindset and lose 60 pounds and all the things.
I love that you say that because I've had a lot of conversations around recovery and things like that lately with a lot of close friends and family and things like that. I personally have not struggled in that arena. Like my addiction is probably sugar and chocolate, which has its own set of issues, right? But not quite the same as what others have experienced. And what I have really seen is some of the most interesting and strong and accomplished people, like really people who've soared and become really successful in thought leader space and real in anything really real estate, have been through something similar. They've been clean and sober for 10 years, 5 years, 30 years, 25 years, and that allowed them to get clear on really what it is they wanted to accomplish and do. And I think that you need those struggles to be able to see the sun shining, right? Like you got to get through those rough patches so you can appreciate the other side.
1,000%. And I think I always say that everybody else worries more about my drinking than I do, right? It's always, or is it okay if I drink? And I'm like, yes, I have alcohol in my home. Just because I choose not to drink doesn't mean my guests can't or I can't be around it. And I'm fortunate enough today, 11 years on this journey, that I'm in a fit spiritual condition that I can be around it. And the reason I say that is because it's becoming much more socially acceptable to not drink.
For sure.
You have a
Yeah.
lot, you have sober January, sober February, sober everything, 75 hard, right? You have all these things that actually now promote that anything not in moderation is not great for you. So I think we're at a different season. I also find that really strong entrepreneurs have come back from something.
Oh, absolutely.
We always say the threshold of control grows as you go through tougher times. Last year, I failed epically as a leader. We basically had to tear the whole organization apart, build it back up in about 6 months. And I said to myself during that time, if I don't know how to run the $2 million business, I'm not going to know how to run the $5 million business. So I've got to make the mistakes now so I'm not making the same mistakes when we get to 5 million and we have 60 people. So I really think that high achievers that have overcome massive mountains in life look at challenges differently, right? When you've almost ended up in prison and lost your life, not much scares you anymore, right? You have a fearlessness that exists because of it.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, and I think we posted something about it recently, is most have a breakdown before they have a breakthrough. That breakdown is what leads you to the breakthrough, and it leads you to see what's possible is if you have that breakdown. But many of us won't look. We won't even try. We won't even dive into it until we have that breakthrough. Then we're like, oh, okay. Like I've always said, it's like God comes at you first or whatever you believe in, and he taps you on the forehead and says, hello. He kind of whispers. And if you don't listen, he hits you harder and harder. And pretty soon you get a brick in the face. You're like, oh, I guess I'll listen now.
I always say he whispers and then he speaks and then he yells and then he roars. And I am a Aries female only child. And so typically for me, it takes the roar. I don't really listen the first couple times. So usually my falls are pretty big because I'm pretty stubborn.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, if you're talking to a real estate agent, like who is your typical agent that comes to you and says, I give help, I need your help? Who is that person and where are they at in their business?
It's interesting how our business model has evolved because really no one has ever done what we're doing before. We have companies that do fractional services, TC listing management, maybe a little bit of marketing. And then we have recruiting companies that help with recruiting. And then you have training companies that help with training. And then you have coaching companies that help, but you don't have it all under one umbrella. And so what that's afforded us is that we can take an agent from their first transaction all the way up to 500 a year. We have the single agent that's coming to us saying, I can't afford full-time leverage, so I just need help. And that's our fractional, right? We can give them TC, listing management, marketing, part-time EA, executive assistant to help with projects. And then our teams, when they're not quite ready for the second hire or they're just done. We have teams coming to us now that are like, we don't want to focus on income servicing anymore. We need to be all in on income generating. So we just want everything white labeled out of our existence. And so that we also have the ability to help people. So we really have built a model where we can follow the agent through every stage of their business. And then we're also helping brokerages as well.
It's interesting because we're starting to see, since the last time we talked, a greater divide between individual agents and teams. Would you not agree? So we're starting to see, I've been in real estate 30 years, so I've seen a lot in my career. And when I first started, like, people didn't have teams. They didn't even have TCs. They didn't have any of that kind of stuff. And so now we're starting to see not just teams of a few people, but we're seeing teams of 50, 60, 80, 100 people on a team. And to me, that's more like really running an independent brokerage or your own brokerage. Are you seeing, and that divide seems to be getting bigger and bigger. You're not seeing as many. It almost feels like some of the independent agents can no longer make it unless they're on a team. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily see so much of that. I have a lot of, I call it the trifecta. I have a lot of agents that don't want to build massive organizations, right? A lot of realtors are not great business owners, and a lot of great business owners are not great managers. And a lot of managers are not great leaders, right? And leadership is the ultimate pinnacle of the skill set that you have to have in order to build an organization that large. And the majority of entrepreneurs do not want to slow down long enough to lead anything. And it's not a bad thing. It doesn't make them bad leaders. It's just not the behavioral style. And leadership requires mastery like everything else. You have to spend 10,000 hours doing it in order to master it. And that's a long journey that a lot of people just don't want to take. So how I choose to look at the way our industry is right now is there's so many options. I can literally come into this industry as a realtor and I have a plethora, a smorgasbord of opportunity based on what I truly want and how I want to fund my life. I can be a single agent and just do 36 transactions. Our friend Hank Avink has a whole plan, 36 for life, like 36 transactions, that's it. Or you can come in and you can say, I want something a little bit bigger, which is what I call the trifecta. I'm going to be the listing agent. I have one really strong admin operator and then one strong buyer's agent. That's a huge opportunity for a buyer's agent because they're not going to have to compete with anyone else. They're going to get all your buyer business and you just get to stay in your sweet spot and do the number of listings that you want to do every year. And then from there, we're seeing more build and build and build and build. The challenge that we're seeing, and this is why our friends have developed Place, is that you have these large teams that build and they build to scale, and then the agents are exhausted. They're exhausted because they're doing everything. They really just want to sell real estate and they don't have the infrastructure and they don't have the passion anymore for the building. They want to go on and do other things. They want to grow their downlines. They want to go build title companies. They want to do mortgage partnerships. They want to go spend more time with their kids. They don't want to grind anymore. So what I love is that we have this beautiful space where really agents have so many options.
It's interesting because, like I said, I've seen so much change in my career. And myself, I'm to the point where I run a team with my business partner, Mitzi, and I'm trying to figure out how I can step back from the day-to-day production and be able to just lead and focus on that because I have a new grandbaby I love to spend time with.
That's right.
But Also, you know what I love the most? I love doing this podcast. I love getting out there and doing more training and teaching. And what is, if somebody is just an independent agent and they want to be able to build and grow, what is really the first step for them? If they were to come to you and say, "Hey, I want to grow a big team." What would that look like in talking with you?
Number one is you have to figure out how to leverage your time so that you can focus on the most important things. And we all know that the 5 things a real estate agent needs to do every day, the only 5 things that are income generating, are lead generation, lead follow up, going on your appointments, negotiating contracts, and practicing your craft. That's it. Everything else takes you away from generating income. It's what we call income servicing. And what we see with a lot of new agents is they generate, they get all this business in, and then they stop to service it all, but they stop
Exactly.
generating, and then they wake up in 90 days and they have no business. So I
Exactly.
say, number one, hands down, first transaction, you should be using some type of fractional leverage, which would be transaction management, listing management. I need to learn how to do it. You will. You're going to learn just by being part of the process. You also don't know what you don't know. So
Yeah.
you're going to look more like a rock star in front of your clients, having a 5, 6, 10-year veteran behind you, telling you what to do, how to do it, why we do things. So, first and foremost, the fastest possible leverage that you can get, utilize it. Utilize it in your business and utilize it in your personal life. If you're still cleaning your house and mowing your lawn, that's an hourly rate activity that's lowering your hourly rate. Now, if you love cleaning your toilets and mowing your lawn, like I've got some clients that they like the perfect cut of grass. Okay, then go ahead and do it. Most
Yeah.
of us don't enjoy cleaning our own toilets and mowing our own grass. So you really have to, from the get go, from like right out of the gate, determine what is your hourly rate that you want to be working for. And then determining all the things that are going to lower it and get rid of them. And then all the things that are going to raise it and do more of them. Because you only have 24 hours in a day, which is about 1,000 working minutes.
I love that you say that, because one of the first things that I did when I got into real estate is I told my husband, I said, "Look, you have a wife, I need a wife." And not in a literal sense, but I hired back then we called her a nanny, and hired a nanny to help with my kids. My kids are grown now and I still have her. So I had to change her title to house manager. Right? I'm like, people are like, "Your kids are grown. Why do you have a nanny?" I'm like, she really was always there for me, not so much, right? Like her being here allowed me to actually spend time with my kids instead of cleaning, stressing out, trying to cook dinner, trying to take care of everything in the house. I was actually able to spend time with my kids. And I think many, especially women, but not exclusively women, we think that all of that stuff is our responsibility. Like we have to do that. That's embarrassing to have somebody come in. And my mother had an issue with that, different generation. "I can't believe you have somebody come in and pick up your dirty underwear and clean your house." I'm like, I got a little caught up in that.
Yeah.
And now I pray every day my house manager never leaves me, because I don't know what I would do, right? It's been a long time. And I think that allowed me to do more of what I love. I'm a better mom, or was a better mom, because I worked. And it allowed me to be able to focus on work and actually being with my kids instead of all the 479 million chores that were on my list.
That's exactly right. And here's the other myth we tell ourselves: if I do it, it's free.
Ah,
Because
yes.
we live in this cash in, cash out mentality instead of looking at it and saying, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing this? If I wasn't picking up my dirty underwear and cleaning my dishes, what would I be doing? I tell folks this all the time. That I was raised by a single mom. I'm an only child. I have been that woman's world for 43 years. She's never been married. She's never had a distraction. It has literally been about me for 43 years. I spent my
Yeah.
20s running away from her. I spent my 30s just working on repairing the relationship. And when I turned 40, probably 39, 40, I said, you know what? Nothing gives this woman more joy than to be my mom. And if that's what she wants to do, then let's figure out how we can have a win-win. And so now she's my personal assistant. She's on my payroll. I'm supporting her in her senior years. No one is going to take care of me better than my mother, but I had to get my ego out of the way because my ego wanted to say, my mommy's taking care of me at 40 years old. No wonder I'm single. No wonder I don't have a husband. And but it's true. It's just like our ego, your mother, right? How could you do that? And the reality is we just have to get rid of the ego, humble ourselves. And I will tell you, it has been the best decision that I've ever made because I get to spend every day with my mom. And there's a time that she's not going to be here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be grateful that I got my ego out of the way. I made her happy. And yes, she picks up my dirty underwear and cleans my dishes and meal preps and pays my bills and books my travel. And it's keeping her brain going. She's happier than a clam. I feel safe. Whose business is it? It's nobody's business to judge us. This is our life. This is what works for us. And I just think it's so powerful to tell people that you're never going to be able to get to the next level if you don't start valuing your time and you don't know what your is.
I saw you get emotional there, and I totally get that. My mom passed away in 2009, so embrace that and enjoy it. And you brought up a key word that I think is important in the ego. And it's not just ego in your relationship like that is, but ego is what keeps many business owners and real estate agents from really taking their business to the next level. It's what really keeps them from being able to expand. Like every agent thinks nobody can do it as good as me. And we know that there's a lot of people who can do it better than you because they actually get it done as opposed to me yakking about it and coming up with a million ideas. Right?
That's right.
And so let's go back to how do we figure out what that first person is that we bring in and what does that look like? I know that I've had an assistant from day one. Like I've barely functioned without having an assistant my entire career. But so many, like you said, they feel like if I do it, it's free. And it's definitely holding people back. They need to get somebody to help them, right?
Yep. So I will say this, ego is how you view yourself. It's how you view your worth. And if you don't determine your worth, every single person around you will. Your clients will, your kids will, your spouses will, your friends will, your enemies will, your haters will. So first and foremost, you have to determine your worth. So then you know what you need to leverage. So I say, come up with those 5 things, which we just gave you as a real estate agent, or what are the 5 biggest rocks that make you the most money or give you the most time with your family or give you the most time back or give you joy. Marguerite, you said, I love doing my podcast. I love teaching. Okay, great. Write those things. Make your joy list. What are the things that give you joy, that really give you more energy, which allows you to do more? And then leverage everything else. Now, how do you determine what leverage you need? Take everything else and prioritize it. What's going to make me the most money the fastest if I get it off my plate? What's going to give me the most joy the fastest if I get it off my plate? And what's going to give me the most time back if I get it off my plate? Call this your stop doing list. And
I like it.
Right? Then once you determine that, now you know the skill set and you have the job description for the person you need to go find. And then there's a million different solutions out there for you. Fractional leverage, permanent leverage, for hire, contractors. There's all sorts of opportunity. And then you just go to the people in your circle that you know and trust and you say, hey, I'm looking for somebody that's going to do X, Y, Z. Who do you know that I should be talking to?
What's interesting because ironically, until today, I don't think I've heard the term fractional leverage. So explain that to me.
So we've always called it transaction coordination, listing management. And actually outside of real estate, that's where the term fractional was coined. People started hiring fractional CFOs, fractional CEOs. So this is somebody that if you're not ready for a full-time 6-figure CEO, you can hire what's called a fractional CEO and they work for several companies. So transaction coordination, an independent transaction coordinator is a fractional TC. They're doing
They are.
transaction management for several different people. And it just sounds sexier.
Right.
I have fractional leverage. That means they're supporting me, they're supporting other business owners. Then when you have fractional leverage, you're treating it like a hire. You have a line item in your expenses. So it says TC, I'm paying this much per year. So when you go to hire that permanent leverage, you already have a line item in the budget for them. Because what do most people do? They're in fear of hiring because they won't be able to afford them.
Exactly. Is that different than transactionally? Is it the same as like you're paying, like what's common are transaction coordinators where you pay them per deal when the deal closes? Is that the same thing or is it different?
That's exactly right. We just track
Okay.
it. So for our clients, we track how much you're spending in fractional leverage. And when you get to that point of 35, 40,000 a year, you're starting to creep up. Then we say, okay, wait a minute. You're ready for a full-time person, or it's going to start costing you money to fractional it out or to hire an independent.
Okay.
Let's get you over to our recruiting division and they will help you start finding your assistant or your TC
Okay.
or your marketing manager or your ISA.
So if somebody is hiring, so you're saying the first thing that most people hire, which I think is pretty common, is a transaction coordinator.
I think if you're coming into the business, you're doing less than 12 transactions a year, you should have an independent transaction coordinator that handles everything for you from contract to close. When you start creeping up to 24 transactions a year, it's time for you to hire a time admin. That administrative assistant, so a full-time assistant that works with you attached to your hip in your office or in your home. And that person does everything except your 5 things. So they do everything operationally. It takes about 6 to 9 months to hire, train, onboard, and have them running. So you want to plan ahead. That's why I say when you hit 12 transactions, start looking for that person because you want to have a full-time person when you hit about 24 transactions.
So how has, we'll use that word COVID for the moment, how did that change things in how people operate? Because like I know, for example, everybody prior to COVID had to have an office, right? And then all of a sudden we figured out how to all not work from an office when COVID happened. And it completely changed the landscape and the dynamic of companies and brokerages. And as I work for EXP and we're all cloud based,
Yeah.
and so it's interesting how it changed the dynamic. And I know that one of the challenges that people have had is, okay, if I hire an assistant, like either ideally they need to be right there attached to my hip, like you said, or what's happening most are remote. Like we have 3 virtual assistants that work out of the Philippines. And I would have never thought that was possible. Although I hired my first VA from the Philippines in 2010 when it wasn't even a thing because I was doing REOs and I was losing my mind in BPOs. And so how has that changed and impacted the industry from your perspective and what you do now?
I will share with you. So I have had a virtual company for I've been in a virtual world for almost 12 years. I've never
Right.
been in an office with the people that I've supported in my previous careers. And then today we have people all over the United States and in the Philippines. I think the biggest challenge that we've seen is the generational mindset around remote work. I believe that the younger generations want freedom, they want
Yeah.
flexibility. They're also willing to work outside of the 9 to 5, right? So I have a lot of moms in my organization and they love being able to go pick their kids up in Carline, come home, do snack time, get them doing homework, put them in front of the TV, do a couple hours of work, get dinner ready, get them in bed, and then do a couple hours of work.
Yeah.
Where we have the challenge is the previous generations that grew up with the programming that you work 9 to 5, you work Monday through Friday, you clock in, you clock out. So if you read studies on this, if you were to Google right now the productivity of remote workers, you would see both sides. You would see evidence that supports that people are more productive working from home. And then you would see evidence that they're 3 times less productive working from home. And I always say, be careful who you're talking to because it's all based on the programming. It's all based on the belief system of the individual and how they view remote work. With that said, if you are going to have remote workers, you have to operate differently than if you have them in office. You have to set things up to help increase communication, because you lose a lot of indirect communication when you go to home. For example, if we're in an office together, I can see when you're working. If we're in an office together, we're having more in between conversations around things. If we're in the office, we're going to lunch together and building culture, or we're laughing, or we're showing pictures. So you have to almost create those items inside your virtual team, which is what we've done. So we have, our whole organization is required to be on Zoom for stand up at 9 o'clock every morning. They are all required to be at a team meeting on Zoom once a week. We have team lunches via Zoom every other week. They get 3-day weekends once a month. If there's not a holiday, we pay for it if they're hitting goal. We have a Slack type program that has all sorts of different channels, foodie channels, dog channels, and our social committee and our culture committee is in charge of engaging in those and creating that culture and environment inside a virtual space. So it can be done at a really high level with some intention and just figuring out creative ways to make up for the loss in the indirect in-person communication.
That's crazy. I'm sure my VAs who are sitting here behind the scenes are thinking the same thing. I never thought about the cultural aspect. We use workspaces with
Yeah.
Google. And so we have not a channel, I guess, but a workspace for all the different things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
But I never even thought about having some of the fun cultural stuff in there. So I'm sure they're listening. So guess what? We'll be setting some of that up.
And then we've set a goal for next year that twice a year we want to get everybody together in one location. And I've got some that are in one location together. And when we do our team lunches, they'll go to each other's houses. So they're together in person, and then everybody gets to see them on screen. So it's a really, but you have to be committed to it and consistent.
I love that, because what we've been talking about for a while, and now I want to get it done because I'm feeling like I slacked on it. We've been talking about one of our VAs, they love karaoke, right? And my husband and my son is a karaoke DJ. So I'm like, well, we can't get them here yet, although we're trying. So in the meantime, we're going to have to do a Zoom karaoke. So AJ, if you're listening, we need to set a date for our Zoom karaoke.
That's right.
And get that done.
That's right. And you can do scavenger hunts. You can just hang out and have happy hour online. I've got some of them plan their own happy hours together. They get on and they just have a drink after work. I think you can really, you can get very creative, but engage your team with it, right? Engage them, ask what they want to do, what's fun to them. And then they get behind it and they're running it. I'm not on every virtual team lunch. I haven't posted a single picture of my food or my dog in a channel. I don't need to as the leader. I need them to be a cohesive unit. They also have to report their priorities every morning in a channel. So we know as an organization that everybody's on track and doing the right thing every day. So if they get distracted by home, they know what their priorities are for the day. And then we also are a highly time-blocked organization. And the reason that we are is, you know how I said, Marguerite, that if I'm in office with you, I can see when you're working?
Yeah.
Your calendar is what does that for us virtually. So if I need to know where you are, I'm going to look at, everybody has shared calendar access in our organization. So if I need to know where you are, I'm going to go to your calendar. And then that way, I'm not going to call you if you're in a meeting or if it says you're with your kids. But if it says you're free, I'm going to call you and you should be available and you should be free. Yeah.
So your virtual assistants are also, you're able to see their calendar as well?
Absolutely. Yep. So we're a full transparent organization.
And what things are you seeing on their calendar? Like what things they're working on, what things because they're at a computer all day. Like I'm out in the field and our agents are in the field. And so what are they tracking on their calendars?
So we are a highly time blocked organization and we are time blocked around your 20%. So everyone in the organization has identified what their 5 or 6 big rocks are that they have to do every day to drive the business forward. So they have time blocks to work on each of those items. And then they have time to work on all the other stuff. And then they have their meetings blocked. And then I have some people in my organization that I see hard stop at 5 p.m., got to go pick up kid's name, right? And then I know that's family time. I'm not going to call them at 5 o'clock, but they also know that if I am calling at that time, it's because it's urgent. I'm going to respect you, but if I need you, like I need you, so answer the phone. So it's just a really good synergy. Now, we didn't always operate like this. I said it, but we never did it. And then I had people that were burnt out, never had time, always felt they were grinding. And I also have to monitor burnout because I have hyper achievers in my organization. I have doers, and they will do and please until they're passed out for 4 days. So I think you also, when people work from home, you've got to be doing care calls as a leader and checking in with everybody, looking at their energy, looking at how they're showing up on Zooms. If they start to show up more relaxed and in the t-shirt versus the cute top, something's going on. We have all women in our organizations. We have a joke that if I ask about your fingernails, it's because I know you haven't taken care of yourself. So if you have cracked nail polish, I'm going to tell you to go get a manicure because that's how I can tell you haven't had self-care in a while. So you just have to know the little things you look for.
So what does it look like for people to work with your company? What is an example as a team, as an agent? What is the first steps in choosing to work with you guys?
So the first step, we make it super simple. You can go to ineedleverage.com, ineedleverage.com. We're going to set up a 15-minute call where you're just going to word vomit all about your business, what your biggest challenges are, where you don't have a lot of time. And then I'm going to put you in touch with the appropriate individual on our team to go through the services that we think that you need. I'm also a high performance real estate coach. So most of my teams are doing I take them from anywhere from 36 to 50 transactions to over 250. My biggest team is 3,500 a year. So I know what leverage inside a real estate business looks like. So I typically can triage very quickly and say, here's where we need to start you. Let's get you over to those folks, and they'll go into detail around what it looks like.
So basically doing a consultation, figure out where you're at and where you want to be, right?
That's right.
Now, I remember as we wrap up today, because I'm running out of time, we talked last time about, which I love, is the 135. Can you explain that as we wrap up? Because I wanted to listen to your podcast like 2 or 3 times because I went back and listened to that and help our listeners understand a little bit about that, because I know a lot of agents are struggling right now and they're trying to figure out what they really want to do. So help us understand that.
So the 135, it's also called the GPS. It's also called goals, priorities, activities by some organizations. Guys, it's basically a roadmap. If you don't know where you're going or how to get there, and you don't have a plan in place, think about when you drive to a new destination in your car. Most of us have to put what on in our cars? We put GPS on to Waze, Google Maps to figure out how to get there. So if you know where you are and you know where you want to go, but you don't have a written plan to get there, then you have a dream, you don't have a goal. And so what the 135 does is it allows you to identify your one big goal. So we're coming upon mid-year. It's the perfect time to do this. Use the month of June to get it written and going and then testing it out. So July 1st, you got 6 months. 6 months. So come up with your 6-month plan. What's your big goal by the end of the year that you want to make? It is not a volume goal. It is a net income, net profit goal. You can have volume on there. You can have GCI on there. I only really track units and net income, profit, because units will tell you your organizational model of how many people you need to hire, and profit will tell you how much you're actually making to fund your life, pay for your kids' college, pay for daycare, all of those things. If an agent, the first number that an agent usually says is volume, because it's the biggest number. It's an ego number. Right. We don't care about ego in this. So number of units, profitability, and then come up with your 3 priorities that you need to hit that goal. If you're working with buyers and sellers, most likely priority 1 is going to be around buyers. Priority 2 is around sellers. And then priority 3 could be anything from systems, operations, leadership, lead generation, if you want to hyper focus on that. Whatever the third thing is that you're going to make a priority in order to hit the goal. And then the 5 is each of those priorities need to have 5 strategies. So what are the 5 things you're going to do to get more buyers? What are the 5 things you're going to do to get more sellers? What are the 5 things you're going to do in operations or leadership or lead gen that are going to get you what you need in those areas? And then the final piece of it is any goal you set must be SMART. Specific, measurable, action-driven, realistic, and time-bound. We don't pay people to create, design, implement. We pay people to achieve a result. And so every single thing on your GPS or your 135 should be tied to an outcome, tied to a specific result. So we all know if we're winning and we hit it or if we didn't.
Love that. I love that. I knew it was going to be a great conversation and we could speak for hours and hours. And I know we have to make a plan. That's my goal by the end of the year. We got to make a plan where we can connect and spend some more time together, because I just adore you and I would love to spend some time with you.
Love you too.
So
this is awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super proud of you and where you've gone with your company. And I can't wait to hear more about it and what you're doing. And for anybody who's interested in working with Brindley, we'll have the links in our show notes today. And you also said to go to where again? I need
leverage.com, book a 15-minute consult, and we'll take you. We've got you from there.
Awesome. I'm here to tell you guys, as an agent for 30 years in the business, I could not have done it without leverage. I could not have done it without having help. And I think it's really the biggest mistake that most agents make is not getting people to help them out in their business and getting people who have greater strengths than you in other areas.
That's right. That's absolutely
Absolutely.
Right. 100%.
Thank you again, Brindley, for joining us today. And thank you, everybody else out there in podcast land. realestaterealworld.com is where you can catch all of our podcasts. And be sure to leave a review on iTunes. I just discovered how important those reviews are in pushing you up in the rankings. So if you have a minute, swing by and drop us a review. And thank you always for joining us on Real Estate Real World. Make it an amazing day.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there, be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.